Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session. For this session, in fact, we have two subsessions. The first part is launching this World Investment for Development Alliance, and the second part is driving development with investment alliance. These are the two sessions. The first part, I would say that we'll have distinguished keynote speakers to give us their expectations, their settings, and then the second part will be a panel discussion on key emerging issues that on the ground from the countries and where it could guide and lead, I see the 10 international organizations to formulate joint programs to implement jointly the activities in the countries and the other regions. My name is James Zhan. I'm the Director of Investment and Enterprise at UNCTAD and also lead the World Investment Report and the World Investment Forum. And I have Ambassador Atalia Molokomi. Ambassador is the Ambassador of Botswana to the United Nations, to WTO, to Switzerland, and she has been wearing UNCTAD, yes. She has been wearing so many hats, including coordinating African groups on economic and development issues on various occasions. So, in fact, she has been a leader in Geneva diplomacy, especially economic diplomacy. Then we have the Secretary General of OECD, Mr. Matthias Cormann. OECD is the short form of Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and the Secretary General has been leading the organization. The organization has been very effective in delivering sustainable development agendas and goes beyond just the membership and to be all over the world. So we'll start with the 10 minutes of the keynote, each has 5. So may I invite Mr. Secretary General, please, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here, Ambassador, distinguished colleagues, friends all. It's my pleasure to join you here today for the launch of the World Investment for Development Alliance. It's sadly a statement of the obvious that we're meeting at a difficult time. The world is facing many challenges right now, which at the same time are making it harder and more important so that we meet our climate objectives under our Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals. So overcoming these challenges will test our resolve, our resources, and our resourcefulness as an international community, and clearly leveraging significantly more private investment, in particular international investment, is going to be critically important moving forward. So increased foreign investment flows can provide advantages beyond its contribution to the capital stock. It can serve as a conduit for the local diffusion of technology and expertise, and of course through the creation of local supplier linkages and by providing improved access to international markets. For developing and emerging economies in particular, it is a key source of financing, which is why the launch of this World Investment for Development Alliance here today is so timely. Foreign direct investment provides capital, technology and know-how while also facilitating skills development and improving access to global markets. For foreign direct investment, though, to play this facilitating role, it's not just the volume, though the volume does matter, it's also the quality of the foreign direct investment which matters. The Alliance offers a platform to promote sustainable and inclusive investment by realizing greater synergies and maximizing the impact among actors working on investment for development. And that's why we are so excited about supporting this initiative. Following the COVID-induced decline in 2020, global flows of foreign direct investment recovered to $1.8 trillion US in 2021, though they're still $350 billion US below their peak in 2015. The causes of this long-term global decline are not yet fully understood. However, individual countries can still find ways to improve their investment climates. And the OECD has been working to help achieve this by using our policy framework for investment. Our framework can support improved governance, better regulations, more effective promotion, and in some countries, further investment liberalization. India, for example, has shown that even during the COVID-19 pandemic, it has been possible for countries to increase foreign direct investment inflows, reaching a record $62 billion US in foreign direct investment inflows in 2020. Countries also need to find ways to improve the impact of foreign direct investment on sustainable development. Our foreign direct investment qualities policy toolkit, which we aim to deliver at our Ministerial Council meeting next month, will support governments in targeting and improving the impact of foreign direct investment on sustainable development in their societies and economies. It's a toolkit which will assess the impact of investment in key areas: productivity and innovation, decarbonization, skills and job quality, and gender equality. It will also help countries to identify the right policy mix and institutional setting to attract and retain quality investments. National governments have different priorities, resources, and options at their disposal. So that's why this toolkit allows for a flexible approach according to a country's context and stage of development. Our efforts are being complemented and reinforced by the work of other international organizations, of course, NGOs and other stakeholders, such as development partners and the private sector. We very much share the mission of promoting sustainable development through investment, and the World Investment for Development Alliance will help us learn from one another and identify what works best and what doesn't, allowing us to better mobilize investments in support of sustainable development. It will also help us exchange views and align in areas such as investment promotion and facilitation, sustainable investment, investment treaties, and digital foreign direct investment, with the aim of stimulating more and better investment while also allowing room for diversity and experimentation. So congratulations on the launch of this initiative. We very much look forward to our collaboration with you, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to say a few words here this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Secretary General Coleman, for you highlighting the global context, the challenges, opportunities, and also your expectations of the lines. And that will follow your lead. And thank you for committing from the top of one of the largest international organizations in the area of investment and development. Thank you. Now, may I give the floor to Ambassador Molokomi for giving the African perspective and also the country's perspective. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jean, dear James. James and I are Geneva people, friends, but I believe we are also here among friends. I'm delighted to be here and to be sitting to the head of the OECD and to hear the commitment that they have to the organization that is being launched today and to the cause of the subject of today. I'm not President Masisi, as you may have imagined. My president was going to come here and sit where I'm seated, but unfortunately could not leave Geneva. An unexpected bilateral engagement came upon him, and he asked me, and I was delighted to come in his place. So I will read his statement, not word for word, but certainly I will read most of it in the 5 minutes that is allowed me. Let me take this opportunity to commend WIPA and UNCTAD, congratulate them for the momentous occasion on the launch of the World Investment for Development Alliance, WIDA. It's a nice acronym as well, it's easy. I like that it begins with W, because it makes me think of women, and I'll talk about women shortly. This marks an important milestone to guide countries on how to promote sustainable development. The initiative comes at a key time to provide solutions when the global economy is experiencing unprecedented setbacks. Botswana aligns itself, according to our head of state, with international practice on the basis that investment flows help to advance countries' development goals through deployment of new capital, employment creation, market access opportunities, technology advancements, and economic growth. The global convergence towards facilitation of sustainable investment is therefore a welcome opportunity. In today's world, the statement continues, developing countries are still grappling to develop efficient strategies to attract sustainable foreign direct investment. For Africa in particular, our continent, the unattractiveness of the market in general and fragmented investor facilitation policies make it even harder to globally compete within this space. I must add here that as a landlocked developing country, Botswana, also an upper middle income country, we find ourselves trapped in this particular situation. Inherent areas that require special attention include around access to sustainable capital and packaging of investment products such as green bonds, among others. In our experience, the statement continues, investors consider several factors before choosing a host country for their projects, including the ease of doing business and domestic market size, among other things. Countries that are still lagging behind often find themselves struggling to develop flexible strategies that respond to emerging global challenges. It is therefore important for the World Investment for Development Alliance, WIDA, to develop a framework that will meet the needs of developing countries. To effectively execute this, WIDA will have to capacitate countries, including on the best possible strategies to attract and incentivize sustainable development. With new developments on the global arena, such as global data protection regulations, there is need to establish collaborative networks between IPA, new collaborations to grow and scale investment, facilitation, and promotion efforts at the national, regional, and multilateral levels. The African Continental Free Trade Area, which I'm sure you've heard about, also presents an opportunity for the much-needed stimulus and predictability for trade and investment on the continent. Fostering intra-Africa investment is key to the recovery process. The pandemic has shown a light on the importance of industrialization on essential products such as food and medical supplies. The Continental Free Trade Area, the African Continental Free Trade Area, can help African countries establish trade corridors for essential goods, reduce duties on essential products, establish regional value chains, reconfigure supply chains, establish local pharmaceutical production facilities, and increase access to medication. Botswana, and I believe many African countries, as I work with colleagues in Geneva in the trade space, attach great importance to global strategic relations, including through information exchanges and collaborative opportunities, which is why we are delighted to be here at the launch of this organization, this alliance. On sustainable investment, Botswana has domesticated the Millennium Development Goals to target projects that have both social and economic benefits. The investment climate encourages foreign affiliates to consider partnerships with the local companies for technology transfer and employment generation, among others. Let me conclude by saying that Botswana and African countries, although I don't speak for all of them as I sit here, I know that we would be interested as a continent to have our countries included in the pilot for the development of a sustainable investment framework, leveraging on the work that has already been done with some selected developing countries. Lessons learned from countries that have undertaken sustainable investment projects such as Cambodia on the establishment of the supplier database to improve linkages between foreign affiliates and domestic suppliers is a case in point, sharing insights on what other countries could explore in future. I will end there, Chair, because I know that the time is limited, but thank all of you for your attention and congratulations once again on the launch of this fantastic project, which we'll be happy to participate in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Molokomi. I deliver this on behalf of the President Masisi, Republic of Botswana, but also in your own capacity leading the African group and for the country. Thank you so much. And your request, that last one, that won't get lost, we'll pick it up and follow. follow up with it. The colleagues out here will do that. Now let's move to the next part of the launching. That is the investment. Stay here if you want to. Yeah. So no, you are part of the process. You add the leadership role in this initiative. So this investment for development alliance is kind of jointly established by 10 international organizations. Let me read it to make sure I don't miss anyone. So this International Institute for Sustainable Development is a think tank and civil society. We have UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. It's a UN organization in the region. We have International Trade Center dealing with trade, investment, technical assistance. We have Academy of International Business, is an academic network consisting over 10,000 business scholars all over the world, over 10,000 as a membership. And then we have World Economic Forum, I don't have to explain. The World Association of Investment Promotion Agencies, representing over 160 or 70 countries, their investment promotion agencies. An Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, where we have the honor to have the Secretary General here just spoken. And then African Union Commission, and then World Bank. Last but not least is the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. That's my organization. So these are the 10 organizations that we started this initiative back last year in October at World Investment Forum, and at that we had an open session to discuss the ways and the means, the vision, the operational strategies, and the possible programs in open forum. And afterwards, we had quite a number of consultations among the agencies. So we decided to establish this with the kind of framework established. We also have a number of other international organizations that would like to join, but they will join soon. At this stage, we have 10 funding organizations for this initiative. So allow me just to play the video for you to have a glimpse of what is in mind in these organizations, what we are going to do. Please.
The World Investment for Development Alliance is a unique global platform dedicated to promoting investment for sustainable development. The alliance is especially important today, given the setback of globalization, the fragmentation of global investment governance, and the critical need for sustainable investment. WIDA promotes sustainable investment through an open and structured network of multiple organizations from the investment for development community. We'll address key and emerging investment challenges and opportunities collaboratively and foster transformational and long-lasting impact. We are so excited to establish WIDA. The initiative was conceived at UNCTAD 2021 World Investment Forum in Geneva and has now come to fruition at the World Economic Forum in Davos, thanks to the joint efforts of all its funding organizations. We welcome other international institutions that work on sustainable investment to join WIDA.
The International Trade Center is pleased to be a founding member of the World Investment for Development Alliance. As a joint agency of the WTO and the UN, fully committed to delivering trade-related technical assistance on the ground, ITC supports developing countries to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals through more trade and better livelihoods. Our investment-related projects help countries to improve their investment climate, attract sustainable investment, and encourage a greater contribution of FDI to local growth and internationalization of MSMEs. In a world facing monumental economic challenges, getting more international investment into developing countries is vital to economic recovery and building back better. This initiative, which brings together key agencies in the trade and investment arena, can play an important role in support countries and firms get their most out of their investment flows. ITC looks forward to contributing to the World Investment for Development Alliance. We're fully committed to its objective of making investment easier, safer, greener, more inclusive, and sustainable.
The Academy of International Business, of whom I'm currently president, has more than 3,000 members around the world, including developing countries where I'm originally from. And it's mostly professors, but with some consultants who research and analyze world trade, foreign direct investment, and multinational companies. Multinationals are a unique institution in the sense that they are either an importer or exporter in as much as 3/4 of world trade, but more importantly, multinational companies act as transferors of best practices in terms of latest technology, organizational skills, ethical standards, sustainability, orchestration of global supply chains, and we look forward as the Academy of International Business to participate with WIDA in this very important endeavor.
The OECD welcomed the establishment of WIDA. Foreign direct investment are an important flow for sustainable development goals, particularly for developing countries. And we know that the gap of SDG before COVID was 2.5 trillion. And even though that the 2021 flows have been really rebounded, we know that with the war in Ukraine and with the lockdown in China, the scenario looks gloomy. From the OECD, we would like to contribute in this WIDA platform with other international organizations, not only in attracting more investment for sustainable development, but also in strengthening the link of international investment with this sustainable development impact. At the OECD, we are launching in June the FDA Quality Policy Toolkit that links exactly the international flows with policies that are for green, gender, skills, innovation, and productivity. With other international organizations joining forces, we can make a difference.
WIPA is proud to be one of the founding partners of World Investment for Development Alliance. As an umbrella organization representing investment promotion agencies around the world, we are fully committed to WIDA's objectives and its principles of co-creation, co-development, and co-implementation. IPAs, as bodies uniquely placed between governments and investors, hold key roles in attracting sustainable investments, as well as reaching the SDGs and thus in creating more inclusive and sustainable economic growth. Together with our partners, we look forward to promoting and fostering this important network and opportunities thereof for a greater sustainable development impact.
The United Nations Economic Commission for Asia and the Pacific is delighted to be a part of this important alliance, bringing together the leading organizations supporting investment promotion agencies and investment policy makers. The World Investment for Development Alliance, or WIDA, will more effectively help countries ensure that FDI contributes to sustainable development. The Alliance's information sharing and organizational partnerships will help ensure that the technical assistance and capacity building we provide delivers maximum results. In turn, this can help developing countries better target and boost quality FDI that directly contributes to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals.
The world is facing so many huge challenges. Just think of climate change, pollution, hunger, poverty. To overcome all of these challenges, we need massive investment, both public and private. But investment won't automatically be channeled towards addressing the world's needs. It won't automatically reduce pollution or reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And it won't automatically serve the poorest. But we need to ensure that it does. At the International Institute for Sustainable Development, we are really excited to be a founding member of the World Investment for Development Alliance and to join forces with other institutions to do just that, to promote investment that advances sustainable development.
We are delighted to launch the World Investment for Development Alliance. at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos. This builds on a tradition of creating alliances to improve collaboration and scale impact. We look forward to working with firms, international organizations, governments, and other stakeholders to create the conditions that encourage development-friendly investment. This will help build a global economy that is dynamic, sustainable, inclusive, competitive, and just.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's end the first session. I wish to express our gratitude again to Secretary General of the OECD and also the Ambassador of Botswana for their excellent keynote speech. Now we have the next session that will be moderated by Matthew Stevenson from the World Economic Forum. Matthew, it's over to you.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. And welcome to the second half of the WIDA launch. I will invite each of our panelists to take the floor one by one when I briefly introduce them. And I will introduce them by name and title, but also offer what I might call a fun fact. I hope they appreciate that because it has not been coordinated with them in advance. Jonathan Wong, Chief of Technology and Innovation at the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. Welcome, Jonathan. Don't worry. So the fun fact about Jonathan is that he was the inaugural head of innovation for DFID. So clearly he knows what he's doing. Indeed. No, there's nothing worse out there. Ms. Gunjan Krishna, please, is Commissioner of Industrial Development and Director of Industries and Commerce with the Government of Karnataka. Now, the fun fact, Commissioner Gunjan, is that her home state is the home of course, Bangalore and the ICT hub of India, and so she's the perfect person to be here to give us advice and insights in terms of that kind of sustainable investment. I'd like to welcome Ismail Ershahin, please, the CEO of WIPA, the World Association of Investment Promotion Agencies. Thank you, Ismail. Also, the fun fact of Ismail is that he joined Invest in Turkey when it first began. Well, but that gives you credibility because you have all this experience, and then, so he's been there, done that, and been with an IPA from the ground up, and now is working with all IPAs. And now, Ms. Sitambile Tombela, welcome, Madame. Acting Chief Executive Officer of Brand South Africa. Now, the fun fact is that Sitambile has worked for 5 different companies, if I'm not mistaken, many very famous ones, before joining the government, and so she's a perfect example of the public-private collaboration that we seek to support. Welcome, everyone. So you see, you shouldn't have been worried. All right, so my name is Matthew Stevenson. I'm the head of investment policy and practice at the World Economic Forum. And this quick panel will dive into some of the issues that the new alliance might wish to work on collaboratively. Before I ask the first question of our distinguished panelists, I'd like to just make 3 small comments to set the scene. The first is that the World Economic Forum is really proud and happy to support this initiative and to be part of this initiative, as my boss on the screen said a little earlier. We have a tradition of supporting public-private and other collaboration, and if we can facilitate that, it's in our mission, and we're so happy if we can do that, help that advance. The second is that I've actually worked in the past for the UN, for the OECD, and for the World Bank before the World Economic Forum, and I always said to myself, gosh, we really need to work to bring everyone together. Why is this not happening? And I would tell people, and say, how can we work more together? And they would say, oh, this is complicated. I'm not sure it's possible. And I said, no, it is possible. So here we've made it possible. And the third is about 6 years ago, the World Economic Forum, with other partner organizations just like today, founded the Global Alliance for Trade Facilitation. This has been very successful. We've been able to really take collaboration forward and achieve something substantive with country projects in over 30 countries and quantifiable benefits to making trade flow better. I mean, independently evaluated the achievements. And so I'm really excited that this alliance, it's going to be different. Investment is different than trade, but there's precedent for alliances making a difference in practice. So with that, please allow me to first ask the Commissioner a little bit about her experience attracting sustainable investment in her state, because I was very impressed to read that in the last few days you've had an amazing track record of attracting new projects, $3 billion semiconductor fab, one of India's largest gigafactory for advanced cell chemistry technology, huge amounts of renewable energy projects. So how do you do it?
Thanks a lot. It's a pleasure to be here at the launch of WIDA. It's simple when you're in Karnataka because we have the ecosystem. In fact, the story of Karnataka is not built in a day. It's taken, say, 50 to 100 years. In fact, we have had the Indian Institute of Science, which got set up in 1909. And from there on, the march of industrialization and the march of innovation has been happening in our state. So when it comes to, what are the, secret sauce for Karnataka and how we are able to do, because this year, for the past 10 years, Karnataka has been in the top 3 in attracting FDIs. And this year we have topped the chart. In fact, 38% of the total foreign direct investments that have come into India have come to Karnataka. That amounts to around 32 billion US dollars that we have gotten this year. And the reason for that is because of all the building blocks that we have put in place. One, the most important part is the policy continuum, because whenever any investment is they are looking for that whatever we have promised would be delivered to us. So the policy continuum, even we have the change of the government. In fact, from one party to the other party, even if the change happens, the policy, whatever has been promised, is actually delivered. So that's a very important aspect. Second is, of course, the infrastructure, and infrastructure for the industries. So we have 3 industrial corridors. So we are giving emphasis on the cluster development, because when Michael Porter talk about, because a lot of economies of scale can come through clusters, and that is where we are focusing. So we have the EV cluster, we are looking at pharmaceutical cluster, we have a toy cluster, and we machine tool clusters and automotive clusters. So that's how we look at it, that how there can be an engine of growth around, and there can be a backward and the forward linkages. Then what we also concentrate on is ensuring that ease of doing business, because any investor that is coming in is want to know, how fast the approvals are coming. There has to be the processes should be very clear. The cost of compliances should be low. So what we are trying to do there, that's a work in progress. I won't say that we have reached that level, but what we are looking at is benchmarking with the best in the world. So looking at Singapore, what Singapore has done, or looking at some of the other countries, the UK we studied, and then we are benchmarking that what we can do. We learn from New Zealand also, because they ranked #1 in the ease of doing business. So we are creating this benchmark ease of doing business, trying to ensure that the approvals are given in time. The other important aspect is, the innovation and R&D ecosystem. So Karnataka, 38% of the total research that happens in the country happens in Karnataka. In fact, 35% of the global capability centers. So if you are looking at outside of US, Intel, General Electrics, Samsung, they have got their biggest R&D centers located, Google, you name it, if you look at, semiconductor space, because most of the design of the semiconductors are already happening in country. So there is a necessary corollary, so that, the ISMC, which has signed a MOU, would come to Karnataka, because we have this ecosystem. So R&D and innovation ecosystem is another important aspect. And lastly, of course, is the social infrastructure, because whenever a foreign direct investment is coming in, they're looking at quality social infrastructure in the form of schools, colleges, you have good residential places, nice climate. Bangalore has cool climate, warm-hearted people. So it's quite a cosmopolitan place, very inclusive. So people find it, which is why Bengaluru has been consistently ranked as the #1 choice for the expats. So this is in brief, why. And the new age technology. So that's a necessity, because Karnataka has this availability of skills. So we have highly skilled. When Apple CEO talked about, why China became such a very compelling story, because they have brought it together, skill, craftsmanship along with the high technology. That is something that you find in Karnataka. We are a leader in AI, in IoT, robotics, quantum computing. So all of them together, is our secret sauce.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, for revealing your secret sauce. It's easy to say, but it's not always easy to do. So, but congratulations on putting it together. You mentioned innovation and technology quite a bit, and so I'd like to turn to Jonathan, this is his specialty. So what can you tell us, Jonathan, about this innovation ecosystem, and especially the role of innovation in increasing investment and in technology and in financing? What is the secret sauce from your perspective?
Yeah, good question. So just to place the kind of context of what I do, I work in technology innovation, looking at innovations in investment from the Asia-Pacific region. And I advise governments on innovation policy. And I think it's interesting. I mean, our colleague from OECD mentioned this 2.5 trillion funding of the SDGs. Now, 1.5 trillion of that is in Asia-Pacific, so it's a big problem. So I always say, look, investment is needed in innovation. So what does that mean? And again, this is very simple for me to say. By say, investment needs to move from investing for profit to investing for impact. Now, here's quite an embarrassing story, actually. It's going to make me sound a bit unprofessional. I was speaking to a finance minister, it's about 5 or 6 years ago. It was a she from Asia, so you could maybe guess. Yeah, it was yours. And I was trying to persuade her, this finance minister, that she should shift from investing for profit to investing for impact and encouraging investments to look at social and environmental challenges alongside profit. And she said to me, Jonathan, okay, you've sold me, I get this. What should I do? Now, for those of you who know me, I'm never short or lost for words, and I hadn't thought about that. So I kind of went away and we did some research on policies that governments have put in place to incentivize investors to think about profit and purpose together. And we worked with the OECD and the Global Steering Group for Impact Investment. And we came up with a policy framework and looked at government policy from 3 ways to encourage this investment, innovation in investment, which was government's role as regulator, as a market facilitator, and as a market participant. So to give you a few examples of what that would look like, there's been an explosion of innovative financing policies in the Asia-Pacific region. Where I live in Thailand, Bangkok, we worked on a royal decree which gives investors in social purpose organizations and inclusive businesses 100% tax break in that investment. So if you're looking at, a pure for-profit organization versus a social business, there is an incentive there to maybe kind of weight with your option. In terms of market facilitator, I mean, there's social stock exchanges being explored everywhere around the world, and these are exchanges that are looking to link social businesses to impact investors as well. And we worked in Malaysia in setting up one of those. And in terms of market participants, listen, governments spend money. They invest. And we recently worked with the government of Bangladesh on the one and only sovereign venture capital fund called Startup Bangladesh to kind of work with them to put criteria around the SDGs within their decision-making process. So not just having, again, profit-making objectives, but purpose objectives. And importantly, having a gender lens in that as well. But maybe I can talk about it later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And being concrete and offering sort of a practical menu going forward. You talked about working with governments a lot and advising them and working in partnership with them. So I'd like to turn to Sitembile, if I may, our second government representative here today. Now, Sitembile, you're the head of Brand South Africa. And we know that branding, marketing is fundamental for investment promotion. And so I'd like to invite you to share your thoughts on how Brand South Africa can really help increase investment flows in South Africa.
Thank you for an opportunity to share my story. The nation brand space on its own is a very peculiar environment in that it's probably 15 years, 20 years old phenomena where most countries are now embarking on positioning and even raising awareness of who they are and what they stand for. So similarly as the founder of the Nation Brand Index, Simon Anholt, we then follow that the model itself where we are able to amplify messages and we're able to create messages around the positioning of South Africa. So at Brand South Africa, what we do, we basically spear champion the messaging of the country, the promotion of South Africa as a desired investment destination. So the question really then becomes, how do we do that? Number one, we know the challenges that are facing us as a country. There's huge inequality gaps, but also to just manage a population of 60 million plus, who each has their own opinion. They have their own opinion on what can make South Africa works. So it actually requires, I think, a lot of tenacity and a lot of relentless. And I think what we've been able to achieve is the mobilization of the private sector, as you said, with my background in the private sector, particularly in the FMCG. So I'm able to pull through the partnerships from your pioneer foods of this world, from your Taka brands of this world, as well as the Unilever, to really say, how do we build a South African brand, purely because they also have interest in those countries. They have brands that are operating in South Africa, and as such, image and reputation then plays a critical role. So our job is really that of collaboration, and we are able to do that with public and private sector. And we did it recently with COVID, where we've basically become a conduit towards the rest of the continent when we're providing vaccines, for instance. That was not done by South Africa alone, but as in government, but it was a collaboration together with business. Another positioning factor that we do, I think it's crucial for countries to get targeting right, to get positioning right, because in a cluttered environment, especially when it comes to countries, how many of you have seen the proposition, we are all open for business? I remember one time I did screen grabs here at Davos, where every country was saying we're open. But then I said, what then sets us apart? Because does it insinuate that countries before were closed? Not quite, probably the right messaging. But we have to say, our country continues to be a sophisticated market, that is vibrant for investment, particularly because we've positioned ourselves as I don't like to use the word gateway, but a strategic partner to the rest of the continent because of our infrastructure development, and we are able then to position ourselves as a go-to country before you then go to the rest of the continent, and that has worked over the years. So I think it really has to do about with having a very clear value proposition as a country, and also understanding the dynamics in the marketing and communication environments, that similarly as we build commercial brands, country brands have to have their positioning. They have to have a brand promise, and that brand promise should ideally be the hook that drives policies, and there should be the hook that drives messages and interventions that are being made by the government. So we work very closely in that. We then take policy and then we contextualize it and repackage it in such a manner that will resonate well and make sense to investors. There's this notion that most countries, they speak the same jargon, as people will say, just the same jargon in government. There are words that you use and they've already classified you. That's why I love government. So we try and debunk and demystify those myths by really currently talking to the economic reconstruct and recovery plan that our president has been championing. And truth be told, we have progressed so much, about 60% interventions that have been done, even from a point of building up the policy matters and contextualizing them, providing solutions to make, for instance, the ease of doing business quite easy in South Africa. So to cut the red tape. So those are the interventions that we as then Brand South Africa, when we collaborate, we then bring the story to life by giving out examples and real case studies that are tangible. And what I like to tell people is that Brand South Africa is that partner that will bridge the gap between perceptions and reality. Media have the best way of telling the story, and then we come and we fix and we say, actually, the reality is X, Y, and Z, and that is our job as Brand South Africa, and I spearhead that strategy of ensuring that continuously, post-COVID, we seek. Actually, I'm saying post, but we are still in the COVID phenomenon. But what we do is reinforce the messages around, rebuilding of our economy, recovery of our economy, but more so, which is important, reassuring investor confidence, because no investor wants to come and invest in a country where there is no protection, for instance, of investors, or there are dents when it comes to rule of law. So we take those matters seriously, and that is what then we intertwine into our messaging.
Thank you very much for those insights on what has worked for South Africa. You certainly have spoken the jargon, my jargon, public-private collaboration, policy reform, targeting, case studies, good practices. So very much appreciate those examples. Turning to Ismail, you are one of the two organizations, WIPA and UNCTAD, hosting us today. So thank you so much for making this possible. Sitembile talked about good practices. And so WIPA, as I understand it, helps with good practices and helps IPAs understand good practices and improve the investment ecosystem. Tell us a little bit more about the role of WIPA in doing that.
Thank you, Matthew. First of all, you said in the beginning that it's going to be a quick discussion and you put us in the pressure already, so that we should be fast to do that. What I was saying, well, it was said already that SDG targets requires a tremendous amount of investments, right? And someone should facilitate those investments. Someone should attract those investments. Someone should provide advocacy services for these investments. And I think we do believe that IPAs are the right bodies to do that. So they play a very critical role. Therefore, they provide advocacy services, they promote investments, they facilitate investments more importantly. However, only few of investors are aware of the existence of IPAs. Only less than 30% of investors are working with the IPAs, which is a thing that we should be thinking about. And we should be increasing that percentage. And they are not just trying to attract any investments. They also target quality investments, sustainable investments. And we do understand that not all of them are at the same level of development. Some of them are performing better. Maybe in case we have time, we can give some examples. But some of them are not yet at that level to provide that proper services. Some of them are suffering from budget cuts. Some of them are suffering from other things, are not empowered enough. And here comes WIPA's role. With all of our partners, we try to create ideal IPAs all around the world so that they can provide better services for investors, so that more investors can benefit from this opportunity, so that more investors can be in touch with the IPAs and they decide IPAs as a proper partners for their investments all around the world. The opportunity is there. We just invite investors to benefit from this opportunity. And let's join hands all together. We tell them to the investors as well that we work together to enhance these guys, enhance these IPAs, because they are very strategically positioned between the government and the private sector. They can provide services with a private mindset. You said in the beginning that I also have a background in the private sector. They do know what private sector suffers from because they've been working for a company in the past. They are not traditional bureaucrats, no offense to anyone, but they know what they've been suffering from. This is why they can understand what feedbacks come from the ground, and they can provide this information to their government so that they create actually a better investment climate for all the investors. I mean, it's more than just promoting, what I'm trying to say. It's more than just facilitating, but it's about advocating and creating better investment climates all around the world. In case we can help as WIPA to create better IPAs, I think we will be able to help more investors to create better investment all around the world. And that's the target as WIPA actually, with all of our partners, UNCTAD, UNIDO, World Economic Forum, ISTB, OECD. I mean, we just combine our forces to create those projects. One project I'll give example that we worked with the EIF of WTO in LDC countries recently. We provide capacity building services and trainings to them. And we just don't bring this know-how from international organizations only, but we also bring best case scenarios so that they can exchange experiences among each other. More importantly, we also bring investors so that they can tell what are the expectations from an IPA. If they worked with the IPA before, were they happy with the service? If they're not happy with the service, well, how would they be happy with that? So we are bringing all the perspectives from different sides. International organizations, academia, investors, as well as experience sharing sessions with the best performing IPAs. This is basically what we do. Oh, of course, it's more than what's in the statutes, a bit broader, let's say, definition. Yeah, I mean, with the private sector mindset and with the demand orientation, we just try to make IPAs to be stronger institutions to attract better investments to the countries.
Thank you, Ismail. And I don't think there could be a better example of public-private cooperation in action. I almost think IPAs could be renamed IPPAs, investment public-private agencies, but you heard it first here.
Let's
I don't know.
Like that. So we will have to change our names.
Yes,
right?
anyways.
But
But maybe WIDA can help, increase that statistic you shared at the beginning of the 30%. So maybe we can give ourselves a collective goal of increasing the number of investors that work with IPAs. Now, unfortunately, we don't have much time today, and I'm terribly sorry about that, but I do want to give everybody a chance for a final word, final sentence, anything that they'd like to leave us with, because I find that very effective. So that, what should we remember from today? Let's go in the same order, if you don't mind, that we started with. So I would first invite the Commissioner. Any final thought, please?
So when we look at investments and getting foreign direct investments or domestic investment, the most important two aspects that I feel is how we can build the whole ecosystem of trust, where there's a trust between the public and the private. So that is one. And second is what kind of experience that we are giving to the investors, because ultimately they take back the experience, and that through word of mouth, more investment comes in. And apart from that, I would want to invite all of you. We are having a global investors meet in West Karnataka 2022 that would be held from 2nd to 4th November at Bengaluru. So I invite all of you, and we would love to work with you and understand how we can get more investment in that. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Jonathan.
I can't decide between two, but I'll be quick. I think one, again, this will be a focus for the Alliance, will be digital FDI. I think certainly in the Asia-Pacific region, it's hard to imagine what our lives would be like if we didn't have access to the digital world. This is a reality for 2 billion people in the Asia-Pacific. So I think digital FDI, we need to look at that very closely. The second one I think we need to look at is gender and FDI. Again, in the Asia-Pacific region, we've done some research. It could add around 4.5 trillion to the economy if we were to pursue women's economic empowerment. So again, gender and FDI is really important. And women are going to have to be at the heart. And women-led enterprise at the heart of our economy if we have to build that better. So allow me to there. Thank you.
Fantastic. Sitambile, please.
Oh, well, there's quite a lot that I can say, but let me try and stick to brief. I think if anything at all, I'd like the audience to walk away with the fact that we do have an economic recovery and reconstruct plan, and it's quite attractive. It actually has a wealth of opportunities from an investment perspective. But I also think because government takes it very seriously, that we must attract inward investment. We've also had to do an introspection and almost loosen up certain structural reforms. That's in energy, as all of you know, in the rail, in transport, in the digital sector. So there's quite a number of attractive opportunities that have basically been given birth post the structural reforms. If you ever feel a need, actually, now it's the time to come and invest in South Africa. Not only are we a country that is one of a kind, with endless possibilities to invest in, I truly believe we're a tenacious country, a resilient country that punches above its weight. We are an emerging market, but a thriving one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ismail, please.
I think we can finalize with key themes that we could do for WIDA in the future. I mean, we've been establishing this institution. Now what we're going to do, right? Maybe I could very quickly say what we are targeting for the next, right? I mean, we are trying to define few key themes for WIDA now. I mean, we can perhaps organize an annual event where we are going to put all the stakeholders together, and we can organize webinars, let's say sectoral webinars and regional webinars to discuss among each other. And we should certainly go for projects. We can jointly combine our forces to create projects to work together. In addition to that, we can create web platforms, for example. When we look at it from an IPA's perspective, I think it's also crucial to look at the investment promotion and facilitation, to promote sustainable investments and to facilitate the reforms, to enable sustainable investments for all the countries. In addition to that, I think quality FDI is another important theme that we could look into, which is one of the most important key themes. But when in the future, I think we can slowly look into investment finance. Gender equality can be the next themes, as you were rightly saying. Well, I mean, but I think we should be transforming and trying to work more in details by creating clusters and working groups among each other, so that we can look into all these things in more detail, and we can expand WIDA, and we can make sure that WIPA is growing to create concrete value for all of our community and our network.
Thank you very much, Ismail, for charting the way forward so that we have our next steps, our action items. Allow me to close this wonderful panel and to thank everyone. This was truly excellent. Maybe just to say that I think WIDA is open for business, if I may borrow Tavila's phrase. So thank you very much, and we look forward to working with all of you. Please do join WIDA as other organizations interested in collaborating with us. Thank you.